Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace and beneficence to us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So welcome to our study of Sri Sarada Devi's life as offered to us in his book, Sri Sarada Devi, Her Divine Play by Swami Chetanananda. And what page are we on, Haima?
We are on page 664, Brother Shankara, and it's a Holy Mother's advice to householders. I think I'll start from the beginning of the paragraph.
Please do, dear.
Okay. You want me to go ahead, Brother Shankara?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening and namaste, everybody. Holy Mother's advice to householders. Holy Mother did not give discourses to householders. Instead, she demonstrated the ideal householder's life. Her life was her message. However, the following are some examples of Holy Mother's advice to householders. The aim of life is to realize God and remain immersed in contemplation on Him.
Now just repeat that. The
Sure.
goal of life.
The aim of life is to realize God and remain immersed in contemplation on Him. God alone is real, and everything else is false. God is,
In other words, all our imaginations, all of our self-descriptions, our limitations, they're all false in the sense that they just come and go with this spacesuit. They really have no permanent reality at all. And so they are, in that sense, false. It isn't as if they're wrong. It isn't that it's wrong of us to be this way or think this way. God created it this way. But if we think in terms of God alone is real, God alone is real. So everything that exists is that divine presence's reality. And so this falseness, as Vivekananda said, it's not an error. He said, we do not move from error to truth. We move from lower truth, if you will, to higher truth. So this falseness, it isn't that it doesn't have a relative reality that goes along with this mind and 5 organs of perception and 5 organs of action. But we mustn't rely on that as the truth, and we must not get immersed in that. She says we should get immersed in contemplation of the divine. So is that clear to everyone? Is there anyone that would like to make a comment from their own experience or would like to raise a concern or a question about that formulation of reality? Okay, please read on, dear.
God is one's very own. This is the eternal relationship between God and his creatures. One realizes God in proportion to the intensity of one's feeling for him. He who is really eager to cross the ocean of the world will somehow break his bonds. No one can entangle him.
Notice that the responsibility, the Lord will never insist on your being in relationship with her or him. God or goddess will never insist, will never force the issue. So it is our responsibility. But Sri Ramakrishna says, don't fret too much about this. This intensity will arise at the proper time. And then you nurture it. As you nurture it, because the seed has been planted, like any other seed, if you nurture it with your attention, it grows. So this business that people have about, oh, I must be intense. No, it's not a question of must be intense. You will grow intense as you nurture it with your attention. This is the seeming paradox. It is our constant, regular attention to the goal and the practices that lead to the goal, not the intensity of our effort in the beginning. If we try to be too intense in the beginning, what happens is we just risk damage to the mechanism, risk damage to the nervous system. So we start off with this feeling of there's something besides myself. We start off with the feeling of I am, then I am, and oh, I see thou art. And after quite a long time of being in that position, where the thou art becomes more and more important, and the I am becomes less and less important, finally one has the experience that allows one to say, and it is an experience that allows one to say, thou art, and therefore I am. So in the beginning, if you plant a little plant, or if you plant a seed and you overwater it, you'll simply drown it. It must be watered correctly. This is why we ask for instructions from a teacher. And when we receive the instructions, we do ourselves a grace, and it is auspicious to follow those instructions to the best of our ability. Once again, anything at all that anyone would like to add from their own wisdom or experience, or anything that you would like to raise as a concern or a question?
I just have one comment, Brother Shankara. It's the perseverance in doing our practices is so important to get there.
Absolutely.
Perseverance, no matter how disturbed you are, how gibberish thoughts come and go, but we just must learn to sit first that particular time that we choose. And then slowly the discipline starts coming in. That's my experience.
Yes.
No matter what, we have to sit down first. This is my time with my God. That's it. And
yes.
Then don't move from there. Even if you have gibberish thoughts, all these chitter chatters, they all will go slowly filter out over time. But they may come and go again. But we must persevere.
Yes.
Continue practice meditation, knowing to know ourselves.
Yes.
And
yes. Our eagerness grows.
Yes.
The mother says, he was really eager to cross the ocean of the world, will somehow break his bonds. Yes.
Definitely.
But we don't start off usually with that. The word in Sanskrit, we don't usually start off with that strong mumukshutvam.
Not at all. That's right.
We start off with an inclination in that direction.
You are
And
right.
then slowly and slowly, we build out toward, it's like.
We persevere slowly, slowly. Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay.
Holy men are born on earth to show people the way to God. They teach each person differently. There are many paths leading to the same goal. Therefore, the teachings of all the saints are true.
How this is not recognized by some. Those people who practice in this way say, look at those people over there. They're wrong. And only my way is true. Sri Ramakrishna said, you must not be so bigoted. You must not think that way. Why? God is infinite. Let's just get that straight for a start. God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. All those words are ways to say various aspects of infinite. So there is no finite way, no particular way. So repeat what Mother said, please.
Sure. Holy men are born on earth to show people the way to God. They teach each person differently. There are many paths leading to the same goal. Therefore, the teachings of all the saints are true. The path leading to Brahman is very difficult. It is quite natural for a man to forget God. Therefore, whenever the need arises, God becomes incarnated on earth and shows the path by practicing spiritual disciplines himself. This time, too, God has shown the example of renunciation. Many think of God only after receiving blows from the world. But blessed indeed is he who can offer his mind like a fresh flower at the feet of the Lord from his very childhood.
Now, does that mean if you didn't do that there's no possibility of you being blessed? No, she's just saying these rare souls that can do this are blessed. But it doesn't mean that you are left behind.
One should practice renunciation in youth. In old age, the body deteriorates and loses strength. The mind does not possess vigor. Is it possible to do anything then? Today the human body is, tomorrow it is not. Even the shortest span of life is beset with pain and misery. He who is able to renounce all for God's sake is a living God.
Yes, and these are the people who surrounded Sri Ramakrishna closely, starting with Holy Mother and the other inner circle direct disciples like Brahmananda, Vivekananda, and so on, and then the rest of them. These were all brought with Sri Ramakrishna. He called them his band of minstrels. Now, any of us who are drawn, and we're here this evening because we're drawn, aren't we? We're drawn. Any of us who are drawn, we've caught the scent, that lovely scent of the divine presence. And we're saying, where is that coming from? Where is that coming from? Finally, as Swami Prabhupada used to say, we find it is coming from our own heart. It is coming from within us. That is the dwelling place of the divine. And it doesn't matter how old we are. Yes, the body deteriorates, the mind becomes less capable. But don't think it cannot happen to me, no matter what your age. Any thought or comment or question?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I think one thing to keep in mind when we come across instructions, either reading or listening, is the context. To whom is what kind of group is attending that particular
Yes.
lecture? Because it might be to, like, I think one time before another class, we read something like that, where it was being addressed to sannyas, those who had already decided to become sannyasins. So if we take it out of context, then sometimes it becomes discouraging. Because, like, I started Vedanta after 60, but before that, yes, maybe I went to the temple, but I'm not sure if I was really devotional. And the second thing is, it's good to have some determination and discipline, but not rigidity that you must do this and you must do that, because again, that could lead to disappointment. And in fact, instead of perseveration, it can turn the opposite way.
Well, what happens if you do that rigidity, that dogmatic rigidity, and develop that expectation, as you say, it's a package for disappointment for start, but also it gets tremendous pushback from the mind. The mind does not like musts. Well, it likes its own musts, but it doesn't like anybody else's. So, yes, dogmatic, bigoted, all those words are the inauspicious words of spiritual practice. Joy in practice that comes after some years. Joy in practice. Then we get the nectar. Then we get the Amrita. The Amrita is the nectar of immortality. But if we try to force the issue, as Swami Prabhupada said, in extreme cases, people actually commit suicide because they fall into such despair because they cannot meet their own inflated expectations. He mentions that in his book, How to Know God.
Even the joy of the process is diminished if it becomes a compulsion. So if you have some, and that's why I'm saying discipline is important, that we have to do X number of times or whatever, or not must, again, some sankalpa. But if there's some other important taking care or some other responsibility comes, and then to put it off just a few minutes, I'm sure there are times that I can think of where I couldn't do at a particular time, but then I found some other time to replace. And first I used to recriminate myself, oh my gosh, I didn't do this, and it used to make me very agitated. But then when I accepted that some days it will not happen at a precise time, but I try to do at least some amount, that slowly started giving me more pleasure, even just to do the process.
Yes, the words compulsion and eager do not fit into the same sentence. There's no compulsory eagerness. There's compulsory obedience. How much fun is that? Eagerness, as Swami Chaitanananda used the word eager, or Mother did. Swami Swahananda used to like the word zeal. Find the source of your zeal and then follow it. Follow it. So, thank you, Swayam, as always. Anything else from anyone? Okay, read on, dear.
He who is able to renounce all for God's sake, is a living God. It is the body that changes. The Atman always remains the same. Lust and gold must be renounced. The master used to say, I can cover the whole village of Kamarpakur with gold, but what good will that do? Everything is illusory. Husband, wife, even this body. These are the great shackles of Maya. Unless you can free yourself from these shackles, you will never be able to cross to the other shore. Attachment to the body, this identification of the self with the body must go. What is this body, after all, my child? It is nothing but 3 pounds of ashes when it is cremated. However strong or beautiful this body may be, it ends up in those 3 pounds of ashes. Yet people are attached to it. What Maya?
And that's the thing for us to remember. When we find ourselves with the various kinds of attachment that we quite naturally have, it's genetic after all, to our body, to this impulse to reproduce ourselves, this emphasis on survival, I, me, mine, what do I need? Where shall it come from? All those things. We just have to say, this is just Maya. All the great teachers say, don't worry about these things. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, Jesus said. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you. Krishna says precisely the same thing in the Gita. The words are different. After all, they were separated by thousands of years and difference in culture, the people that they were talking to. But the message is exactly the same. If you will not fret about these things and turn your attention to the more auspicious truth of the matter, the higher truth of the matter, and refocus and refocus and refocus your attention on that until your attention becomes one-pointed and you attain Savikalpa Samadhi, then everything will be transformed. Every one of the teachers that comes along says this in one way or the other. It is worth the effort. It is worth the effort. Any comments or questions from anyone? Mother says, what Maya? Yes, what Maya? Okay, dear.
One must experience the effects of one's past actions. None can escape them. But japa minimizes their intensity. For example, a man who, as a result of his past karma, is destined to lose his leg, may instead suffer from the prick of a thorn in his foot.
Another place she says a scratch. So So let those who have ears to hear. What does she say? Lessens the effect of our past karma. Making japa. Why? Japa changes the very nature of our body and mind. Japa is vibration. It is holy vibration. We live in a world of worldly, of material vibration. When we introduce to that this spiritual vibration, slowly and slowly, slowly and slowly, it changes the very nature of what is called our chitta, our mind stuff, which is infused throughout every cell of our body. So as it changes the nature of the chitta, it changes the nature of the cells themselves. This is not imagination. You can read a book by Pim van Lommel where he details exactly how this happens over a period of time. Any of you who want to know about that book, well, let me hold on just a minute. Here it is. This is the book I'm talking about.
Beyond life.
It's called Consciousness Beyond Life, and it is by a doctor, a Dutch doctor, Pim van Lommel. It describes in scientific detail. He's a scientist. He's an MD. He describes in scientific detail that it's consciousness that is, and its influence, this consciousness, the spiritual aspects of consciousness, which there are no other aspects of it, when that is brought into our being, it transforms it. Any comments or questions?
I have one question.
Yes, Sham.
Does the japa means prayers, hymns, and stotras, which are very much common to Hindu religion, like Vishnu Sahasranam and all those? I mean,
No,
just
that
for
is not japa.
no, that's not
Japa,
japa.
they may be very beneficial, but they are not japa. Japa is the repetition of a mantra that contains potent seed words that have been left to us by the great teachers. Sri Chaitanya left Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And to that can be added the precursor, Om Kling. These Om is the universal bija. Kling is a bija associated with the great attraction of Sri Krishna. Om Kling Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That's japa. These other things, they have their effect, but it is even more slow than the effect of japa. Japa itself takes years to take effect. This is a very old mechanism we inhabit. It is the result of 13.7 billion years of evolution. That's a lot of experience that is together formed this spacesuit made of stardust. And it is, in fact, made of stardust. So, no sham, all these other things, however auspicious and beneficial they may be, particularly for keeping our minds tuned high, they are not japam or japa, as Mother is speaking of.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
a couple of requests. One is if Haima can read that again, where Mother
am.
talks about the karma, and you have to, and if you are supposed to get this, you get that instead. That sentence, and also what I think I might have lost my attention a bit. What other things was Shamji referring to? That
All of the things that are associated with the practice of spirituality, particularly as associated with temples and kirtans and things like that. The hymns, the stotras, all of these things. Now, as I said, all of these things are auspicious, and it can bring you to a state of ecstasy, but it won't do what Mother says. Okay, start from one must experience.
Yes, I was going to do that. She read my mind. One must experience the effects of one's past actions. None can escape them. But japa minimizes their intensity.
Minimizes their intensity. Doesn't make them go away.
Yes, it minimizes. For example, a man who, as a result of his past karma, is destined to lose his leg, may instead suffer from the prick of a thorn in his foot. If you love a human being, you will have to suffer for it. He is blessed indeed who can love God alone. There is no suffering in loving.
What is the deep secret in what she just said?
To me,
He is blessed indeed
yes.
who can love God alone. If you love a human being, you will have to suffer for it. He is blessed indeed who can love God alone. But every human being is an embodiment of that divine being, God. As Yajnavalkya says in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is not for the sake of the husband that the wife loves the husband. It is for the sake of the self or God. So you can love other human beings and not suffer for it. You will suffer if you love them in that way that results in jealousy, possessiveness, all of that. If you love the God in someone, you want them to be free. You don't want them to be possessed by you. You want them to exercise that lack of limitation and freedom. So it isn't that you can't love human beings. If you love them in that limited, personal sort of way, then you will suffer for it. And there's no way around it. If you love them as God, if you love them for the sake of that self, then there is no suffering. There is only joy. That doesn't mean that life will be without suffering. It simply means that that relationship will not cause you suffering. There is no suffering in loving God. Yes.
Brother Shankara, it came to my mind that if we leave the transactional piece of it out of relationship, whether it is with human being or God, then the love flows more naturally.
Precisely. Sri Ramakrishna says, love for the sake of love, love for love's sake alone, not for any transaction. You're right. The minute you bring in transaction and calculation and all that stuff, it's just a package for suffering and disappointment. So you're absolutely right, Swayam. It is that transactional aspect. If you do this, then I'll be that. No. So then to escape that, we in subtle ways are not quite truthful. And oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. So to escape the transactional aspect of transactional, which is not love at all.
It's a loyalty, right, Brother Shankara? If you do this, I do this. I do this, my employer pays for it. It's a loyalty there, not really love.
Yes,
Love is unconditional.
well,
No conditions
true
attached
love
to
is
it.
true
True
love.
love is unconditional.
And the love for God is unconditional, and God's love for us is unconditional. Love who art partial to none. We are equal before thy sight, it says in the evening hymn. Love who art partial to none. We are equal before thy sight. In other words, loves all unconditionally and equally. Any other comments or questions? And the thing is, since all the great teachers have told us this in one way or another, it is auspicious for us to at least take a stand for it as a truth and see if we can behave in accordance with that truth so that we don't then find ourselves entrapped once again in the snares of Maya. Anything?
Brother, can you
Yes,
say
Sri.
what is the meaning of cling?
Cling.
Yes.
There is no meaning to
Yes, okay. All right.
bijas.
Hmm.
They are Shabda Brahman. They are Brahman in the form of sound. The association with cling,
Mm-hmm.
the bija cling,
Mm.
is the attraction, the great attraction of Krishna. We see it exemplified in the relationship of the gopis and gopas with Krishna in the Rasa Lila of Vrindavan. And of course, its Maha aspect was embodied by Radha. She could think of nothing but Krishna. Her mind just did not want to think of anything but Krishna. She was completely within the thrall of that feeling that is gestured to, that attraction of Krishna. But cling does not mean Krishna's attraction. It's not a word that means anything. It just is. Just when we say the word cling, we will feel that attraction within ourselves.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's not a word. Vivekananda, when we say the bija, the seed sound, cling. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I'm thinking about something. This might be an ego trap. I agree that love is unconditional.
Yes.
How about if people choose to enter relationships, though? I think maybe there can be conditions in relationships or ways that people communicate what is caring for them in a relationship and what is not caring for them? In other words, like not just being a doormat or just like loving, loving, loving. So how do we negotiate this love, but this pure love, and
It's,
also this
it's not a
relationship?
negotiation. It's not a negotiation. It's simply, these are my boundaries. If you cross them, we cannot have a relationship. I will not be a doormat. These are my boundaries. And every one of us will have different ones. So your love for the other person, you can't love yourself through them. They have to love you. If you can love them unconditionally, but if their behavior transgresses your boundaries, then you have to simply say, I'm sorry, this does not work for me. It's like Bob Dylan saying in that song, I gave her my heart, but she wanted my soul. So don't think twice, it's all right. And he leaves. So you must never allow yourself to be a doormat. Never, ever. So it's not a negotiation. It's simply a statement of fact. This I will not endure. If you persist in this, we cannot have a relationship. Yes, Swam.
I was thinking, sometimes or most of the time, our left brain makes things too complicated. If I guess we put a stake in the truth for the moment that, yes, many sages and saints have realized, and one day I'll get there too.
Mm-hmm.
And like baby steps, follow the teachings of, whoever you choose, but the 4 yogas or just the yamas and niyamas and the discipline. And eventually, I think it blossoms into unconditional love. It is very hard to force unconditional love.
Oh, no, you cannot
Yeah.
force
Yeah.
unconditional. You can take a stand for it.
That's right.
You can say, I understand that this is the ideal, and I take a stand for it. But you cannot force it. The whole idea of forcing unconditional love is an automatic tautology. It simply fails the test of logic.
Mhm.
And by the way, Sharon, it's so good to see your face. This business of working toward unconditional love in our relationship with others, we will have moments when we just think, can I do this? Can I do this? And then you just think, well, just let me do this. And what happens if you do that? And the other person is also sincere and good-hearted, even though they are not always what you want them to be. And I'm not talking about transgressing your boundaries. I'm just talking about they're just being their unique and wonderful self. Well, what you find is if you endure through these trials in a relationship, that the other person becomes more wonderful than you ever knew. And so you keep discovering them.
I think it comes in like steps. Initially, you become more forgiving of yourself. If the other one, is not treating you the way you want to be treated. So first comes forgiveness, then a little bit less agitation. Then it's easier to let go. then it is, I guess down the line easier to actually love the other person truly.
Well, like all good doctors, Swayam Tyagi, you are very process oriented. And that was a very good description of the process. Yes. So, doctoring wouldn't happen if that mentality didn't exist in people like you. We start here, we do this, we do this, we do this, and we get to there. Yes. And you really started with a very important component. You learn to forgive yourself and to be yourself, as it says in Shakespeare's play. To thine own self be true, and it follows as the night the day, that thou canst not be false to anyone. It actually, in Shakespeare, it says to any man, but, that's just because that's the way it was written in those days. If to thine own self be true, and it follows as the night the day, that thou canst not be false to anyone. And so self-forgiveness and self-determination, being who you truly are, authenticity, authenticity, authenticity.
Brother Shankara, I just
Yes.
want to make one comment for Miss Shara. She brought such an excellent point of doormat. What I'm saying is you can love the person, but you don't have to love the behavior and be attached to that behavior. You need to, if you have to separate from that behavior, yes, you can separate, but you can love the soul of each person in the universe.
Oh, yes.
Just wanted to make that clarification to her. None of us deserve to be a doormats to anybody in this world. We are all divine. We are all divine beings. But you can still love, even you separate from that person, you can let it go and love that soul, but you don't have to love the behavior, Shara. That's all I'm saying it. That's all I wanted to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Just a clarification.
Yes. As is said in the Christian tradition,
Yes.
Abominate the sin, love the sinner.
Love the sinner. Exactly. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what is unconditional love. Loving the sinner, but not loving the sin.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Human beings are going to behave
They are.
the way they're going to behave.
We all come with the baggages.
Until we're perfected, we're going to be imperfect. And when we reach perfection, there's a very great probability we will simply abandon the body altogether.
Thank you, Brother Shankar, for the time.
So anything else from anyone? This is a very productive discussion. This is exactly what's meant by having a class. This is not meant as a lecture, either from Mother or from me or from anyone else. This is us learning together, studying together the art of spirituality. And so each and everything that you bring to this is a priceless contribution because it comes from your great depth, breadth, and divinity.
Want me to go on?
Yes, please, dear.
Okay. If you love a human being, you will have to suffer for it. He is blessed indeed. Who can love God alone? There is no suffering in loving God. Be devoted to God and take shelter at his feet. It is enough to remember that there is someone, call him father or mother, who is always protecting you. Very, very true. I can agree on that one.
Yes.
I can truly agree on that one. God is purity itself and cannot be realized without the practice of control of the body and mind. Can anyone destroy lust altogether? A little of it remains as long as one has a body, but it can be subdued, just as a snake can be subdued by means of dust. And the dust referring at the bottom, referring to the charmed dust used by the snake charmers of India. That's what they mean, means of dust. They use the dust for chicks.
Yes.
They do
And
use.
in Chaitanya's prayer, just about this practice of japa, this practice of chanting a mantra. This is the way Chaitanya starts his prayer. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quenched that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. So this, from what is recognized as an incarnation of God, this stupendous promise with which he opens his prayer. Chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean and quench that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. Now you think, I can't chant the name of the Lord and his glory unceasingly. No, of course you can't right this minute. But if you start chanting, you find, as it is described in The Way of the Pilgrim, and the pilgrim follows his way, these beautiful books about a Russian monk who learns the secret of the Jesus prayer. If you start and you continue, and as Haima said, if you persevere, no matter what, slowly and slowly you'll find that that great chanting of the name of the Lord and his glory, which is contained within the mantra that you're given by a teacher. The glory is contained in the treasure box that is given to you by imparting that mantra to you. So then what happens? Slowly and slowly, the heart is purified, wiped clean, becomes more and more accurate reflection of the reality that is you and creates who you are as a human presence. And this addiction, this immersion in worldly desires and activities slowly and slowly wanes until it finally, because you've no longer watered it with your attention enough to keep it alive, it goes dormant or is quenched. Any final comments or questions? We've got just a few minutes left. Anything at all from anyone? Okay.
Okay. If you are constantly in contact with the objects of enjoyment, you are likely to succumb to their influence. Don't be afraid. In this Kali Yuga, mental sin is no sin. Free
No,
your mind.
let's not go by that.
Okay, sure.
If you're in constant contact with objects of enjoyment, you're likely to succumb to their influence. Don't be afraid. In other words, as you feel their influence, don't be afraid. In this Kali Yuga, mental sin, in other words, the feeling of attraction toward those things. And there's no way for us, unless we become complete renunciates, there's no way that we cannot be in constant contact with objects of enjoyment. We're just surrounded by them. Surrounded. It isn't like we're living as shepherds, herding a flock of goats or sheep or cows in some meadow somewhere. No, 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 no. It's just coming at us as a relentless noise and the endless confusion of what it is that we're presented with. So Mother says, don't be afraid. In this Kali Yuga, mental sin is no sin. Any comments or questions?
I have. Go ahead, Shara.
I'm thinking that one practice is to use the joy to God, like find the God in the grain of sand.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the author who says that. Maybe you know.
Blake.
Blake. Yes, Blake. Thank you. And so to see a beautiful flower and see God in it, or
Yes.
experience the laughter of a child and hear God in it.
Yes.
So to really embrace these joys as God.
Right. And not as sense pleasures. You know, they come through our senses. But you're right. When you transmute them, when you transform them by the philosopher's stone of knowledge, that this is God, God that is in and through this flower, through this child's laughter, through this miraculous grain of sand. Mm. Yes, indeed. Free your mind.
Free your mind from all worries on that score. You need not be afraid.
So I think we'll leave it
Quick
there.
stop there. I have a good. Yeah.
In this Kali Yuga, mental sin is no sin. Free your mind from all worries on that score. You need not be afraid. In other words, your thoughts do not produce karma. Your thoughts do not produce karma. Only your speech and your actions produce karma. That is the upside of this dark Kali Yuga, is that the grace of the divine is that your thoughts do not create karma. So we'll leave it at that for this evening. Om Hari Om. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amrutangamaya. Abir Moiti. Oh, dearly beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless confusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through. Light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. O Lord, make it so. Peace, peace, peace and beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So, any of you who choose to join us tomorrow evening, we will read and discuss that wonderful small book by Swami Ranganathananda called Divine Grace. You can find the book online, or it's available here in the bookshop. It's just 83 pages long, but you talk about action-packed. We've only, this Wednesday, I think, will be our third meeting, so we're not very far into the book at all. So if you want to join us, please do. And then, of course, this coming Saturday, there will be no class because I have to be out of town. And on Sunday, there will be a talk on Give It a Godward Turn. It's just called a Godward Turn, ? In other words, we'll answer the question, what does it mean, a Godward turn? And we just heard some of that from Mother tonight. Any final thought or comment from anyone? All right, dears. Until the next time we see one another, such a joy to be with you, such a joy to study the art of spirituality together this way, in your divine presence. Jai, Jai, Jai. Until next time.